We're back in the Situation Room with some unsolicited advice today. I'm going to start with Van.
Well, my advice is for the African-American community. We are, people are celebrating, people are very happy because we performed very, very well. We were key in Ohio to the victory. But we're in danger now. We have a community that is politically successful, but is policy irrelevant. Nobody's talking about what we got to do to help black people, and is in economic real trouble. Past 4 years, you haven't heard from the African-American community. We've been sort of quiet. We wanted to make sure that the president did well, didn't want to cause any problems, but we're in free fall economically. And I think it's important for us to come forward now with an agenda that can help everybody. We need a jobs for youth agenda that can help disadvantaged kids, and the black community needs to be loud and proud about that. My concern is that we wind up being indispensable to the Democrats and get nothing out of it, irrelevant to the Republicans, and wind up in a situation where we're a part of the political life of the country, but left out of the economic life. That's not good.
I think there was many messages and lessons to be learned from this election. And I mean, do you think Republicans are hearing it?
He's got I think Van's got a good point, because we still see Hispanics, Latinos seem to me to be seen as much more of a swing vote by Republicans and Democrats than what you see with the African-American community. And I think the African-American community has to step up and really become sought after and courted. Let them work for your vote.
I agree 100% with that.
And here's one actually small but kind of interesting statistic, is that while Mitt Romney was underperforming John McCain among Hispanics, he actually won more of the African-American vote than John McCain did. Now, he won, 6% instead of 4%, but he actually got up to like 8 or 9% among 18 to 29-year-old African-Americans, which is the group that's hardest hit by unemployment. Again, these are tiny numbers, but
Mitt Romney underperformed a light post with Hispanics. Don't get me started on that today.
A Jack Kemp Republican would be very welcome right now to create some sense of competition. We really need, it's a big part of our country, 10%, 11% of the country right now in economic free fall. Neither party taking it seriously. That's bad.
Well, it's not as if the Republicans didn't work for the African-American and Latino vote. They actively rejected it. I mean, that was the sense that I got. They actively used that as a way to run up the score with white voters, assuming that they wouldn't be able to get voters in those communities. And it really created a corrosive, toxic discourse that I think hurt everybody.
What's your unsolicited advice, Diana?
Well, my unsolicited advice is for...
hold it up.
I just want you... I have been
How do you say that in Spanish?
Actually, we have...
You're an extra exclamation.
No, you actually say yeb, yeb, or you say bushito. One of the two. He will respond to either in Miami. And in full disclosure, I should say he is my friend. Yes. I work for him. I've campaigned for him, and he's my tenant. So, but Jeb Bush is the type of Republican that really needs to get off the sidelines and lead right now, be a vocal voice in the party. He's a pragmatist. He's not subjected to pledges. He's got great ideas, big, bold ideas. He's not afraid to speak. There's a little bit of Chris Christie in him where he can say things that he wants to say. He can play such a big role in having the Republican Party understand what they have to do with minorities, what they have to do with Hispanics. He can even say...
I love this. She is passionate.
She's passionate about everything.
I'm bored. We need it.
So, 2012...
You cried when Barack Obama... I'd be in tears.
So 2012 wasn't the year for Jeb. Do you think 2016 is the one?
I think it is. I intend to go stage a sit-in the minute I get back to Miami. Anybody who wants to join me, Biltmore Hotel.
I will send some cameras, that's for sure. What's your advice, Ross?
So my advice is for President Obama and also for all Democrats basking in their victory. You should send a thank you note to Howard Dean. Because if you look at the roots of this Democratic victory, and we've all sort of been over the numbers, and it's clear that turnout was huge, turning out Democratic constituencies more than people expected, and the electronic internet side of the campaign was huge. All of this goes back to Howard Dean's grassroots campaign in 2004, which was the first time that you had the tech community really getting involved with the Democratic campaign. All of this sort of modern internet-age political strategy started there. And Dean has sort of been a kind of forgotten man in the Democratic Party.
For some.
For some.
And so I bet he'd appreciate a thank you note, whatever he's doing today.
Wherever he is.
Frankly, I'd rather have him forgotten, but that's okay. That's just me.
Shocking, Anna, shocking. Margie, what's your advice?
So my advice would be to... elected officials of both parties, and that is, how do we continue talking to women and about women's issues? It's not simply women aren't a subgroup, a niche group. They're a majority of the electorate. I think it was great that women really decided this election for the president. It was the first time since 1996 that a president won by winning women and losing with men. But I think it's not simply about abortion. It's not simply about birth control. Women's issues really about talking to women about how policies affect their daily life and how what the candidates are doing, what elected officials are doing can really help improve their day-to-day situation. And I think the economic debate that we're having right now is a good way, a good exercise for getting rid of the jargon and process and political wrangling that's part of our language and really speaking with a common touch, so a way that people can understand.
I think explaining your story or explaining your position from Washington out, I think, is something that politicians are horrible at in general. People that don't live in Washington or near the Beltway, they don't understand it. I mean, half the words we use sometimes I think are hilarious.
Fiscal cliff. Fiscal cliff.
We saw at least two Senate candidates on the Republican side commit great gaffes with the subject of rape that possibly cost them those seats. I would say
not possibly.
All right, well then I guess we've got to take them to biology class, and we've got to also put them in some sort of 2012 political sensitivity language class on how to speak about some of these controversial and difficult issues.
But I think that you're absolutely right, though, that the biggest mistake that Republicans could make right now, I mean, look, obviously the Republican Party needs to not nominate Todd Akin for the United States Senate in Missouri again. But the Republican Party's, the gender gap is driven by economic issues as much, if not more, than social issues. And a Republican Party that just says, well, we won't nominate Richard Murdoch again, and we won't talk about rape, and everything will be fine, isn't going to close the gap.
There's a branding
It's okay
issue
to talk about rape, but you just have to talk about it in a way that is not offensive to women and, you know, a good half of the population.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Great advice today. As
no advice
always,
from you?
I, once again, will be keeping my unsolicited advice to myself. Wolf.
She just saves it for Wolf.
Thank you. We'll get it later. We'll get it from her later, guys. Thanks very much.